Here's the next one, 2004 Honda Accord. Apparently this thing had a spot repair in here in the past, and it's starting to show. And inside this edge, starting to get some rust. Inside the fender. I'm just going to sand all the rust out and get it down to the metal. And tape along this top edge and just spray some paint back behind here to save the fender, paint on the fender. I am going to have to sand through whatever's on here. There's probably a little base here and some clear, but I'm going to have to sand through to the original paint and prime this section just like this on both sides. I'm going to pull the roof molding off because there is some rust back behind here in a few places. There's some right there, and comes inside the glass flange here, starting to rust. So basically I'll just be painting the roof rails and down and clearing the entire quarter panel down to here. There's a little damage on the quarter right there. We're just going to leave that and just touch up the paint here. I'm going to try to blow a little paint in that gap right there and get rid of that rust too. Other side, almost identical to the other side there. And the bad spot repair here from maybe a previous collision where they painted the fenders and front end and blended up the roof rails. I'm going to start by wiping all this down really good. I'm not going to wash it, it's just too cold. But I can wipe it down with water-based wax and grease remover and get it clean enough. Show you once I start sanding on it. Alright, I've started sanding it. I just took a piece of 180 right there, folded it up twice so it was nice and tight in there, and it gave me a little bit of pressure on the panel as I moved it back and forth. Just sanded all the rust out. You can see where I stopped right in there, where it's still good. That's just sludge right there from when I cleaned it. I have to clean that up. I'm also doing this up here. Got some rust inside here. Pretty much the whole rail all the way up. And the stamping marks in it are holding rust. So I'm going to take a little wire wheel and I'm just going to run it along that groove all the way up, get the rust out, and then I'll come back and just sand it smooth all the way up. Get ready for some primer. I'm going to need a bigger wheel that's got some longer bristles. I'm going to go change it out. Okay, I've got a bigger wheel, a little bit longer bristles on it. The other one's a little bit stiff. I'm going to work my way up and I'll show you what it looks like when I'm done. Okay, I've got it cleaned up. See if you can see that. I'm going to be able to tell with the reflection on it like that. The ideal thing would be to sandblast that, but if I get that out, it'll make a huge mess. Alright, that's ready to go. I got to go do the same exact thing on the other side, and then I'll just mask around this area. I'm going to paint. Put color in here, back to a good spot. I'll have primer in here. There's bare metal right there. I'll just put color wherever I have to, probably the whole top rail actually. And then I'll end up blending it towards the trunk so it'll match there, and blending in down to this body line. And I'll clear the whole panel all the way down both sides. It'll be both quarters and both roof rails. This is just an economy job to stop the rust. Be back when I got it ready to prime. Alright, I'm ready for primer. I've actually already done the etch primer. Instead of waiting on the epoxy, I just sprayed on a little etch primer down in the channels where the rust was. That'll be perfectly fine for this job. I'm going to go over this with 2K urethane anyway. So I'll be painting over the urethane and not over this. You're not supposed to paint directly over this. I've done the same thing on both sides. I'll be back when I spray the urethane primer on top of this. Okay, here it is in primer. Got the masking pulled off. Looks pretty much the same on both sides. I'm gonna run over this with a DA with 400 grit and a soft interface pad. I just need to sand this out and feather it. Doesn't have to be perfect. Gonna get this thing masked off and try to paint it today. Be back in a second when it's prepped. I'm gonna show you a close up of the tail light. I'm not gonna take any of this out. It's not paint enough to do all that. Essentially, I'm taking a fiberglass sanding pen, and it's got an adjustable tip. You can run it in and out like this. I'll leave it about right in there just so I don't break off much of the fiberglass and keep it sort of stiff. And it's got an extra one in the handle, and I just buy refills for this. I'm gonna go around this edge here. Go around this edge, get the fiberglass all the way into the edge there, get a nice good bite on the paint. All the way around. I've already done the other side over there. We're just finishing up right now on this one. After I get all this scuffed in here, I'll go around this whole area with a gray Scotch-Brite so I can do the blend. I'm going to blend down from the C-pillar down. Here's another shot of it. Just running this under here. Just scratching that edge really, really well, all the way around. And as you use this, it breaks off. You can see some of the fibers laying over here on the quarter. And you just run a little more out as you go, as you break it away. We'll go all the way around. Now, the other one's already done. Next thing will be to prep the quarters, and I can take the car off and paint it. All right, I'm starting to Scotch-Brite the quarter panel here. And you can see as I sand it, these little spots right here, let me focus it. These little spots here, it's trash that's bonded to the paint just from the weather. And it catches the dust and you can see it. And all those are gonna look like dust in the paint if I leave it. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go over the whole panel just real quick and real light with a piece of 1000 grit. Just to knock that stuff off. And I'll come back and scuff it like this. That'll knock all those little hot spots off, the stuff that's bonded to the paint. Then I can Scotch-Brite the rest of it and be done. Alright, I've run the 1000 grit over that. That didn't take but maybe 10 seconds. I just literally wiped over it with that piece of 1000 grit. Knocked all the hot spots off, all the bonded contaminants. Now I'll come back with the gray Scotch-Brite and take pretty much all the gloss off that I can. It's not going to take it completely down. It's not rough enough, and I got a blend. So this will all get adhesion promoter before I do the blend, so it'll stick well. See you when it's ready to paint.